Welcome to the Made for Agriculture podcast. Today's hosts are Adam Jones and Cameron Horine.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the Made for Agriculture podcast. My name is Adam Jones, and sorry, Cameron. Yeah, you're here this morning, present, looking sharp dressed as normally. So how's it going over there?
Good. Thanks for the great intro, Adam.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I just skipped right over you this morning. You weren't at the top of my screen for some reason. So, we are recording this on July 14th of 25. So we've got crop staged across the area in a lot of different growth stages. We've had some kind of localized, definitely wet weather challenging conditions this year. So our plant dates varied just a little bit. And so I know everybody's got some different things to talk about this morning. There has been a lot going on, seeing, planes and drones in the air, and actually on some of those later beans, we're still doing a lot of post spraying with ground rigs. So I'm going to let these guys get right into it though. And we will start kind of from south to north, this morning, and let's go down the Delta. And, Jesse, what's going on?
No, not much, just more rain. And I'm not complaining about it, because after July 4th, I'll take all the rain the good Lord wants to give us. But, and actually it's not big. It adds up to a lot, but most of the time it's just a couple tenths, half inch at a time. But I think the last 10 days, 8 of them, we've got something in the afternoons just from stuff building up. But really, it's kind of, after the 4th, we kind of slowed down a little bit. Guys decided if it wasn't planted, it wasn't getting planted. It kind of focused on spraying for a week. Like I said, with these isolated rains, it kind of makes it a pain, but it ain't never rained enough to just keep us out of the field. So the big thing is just herbicides going out, and then fungicide on all the early stuff, all the early corn. I'm going to kind of let Shannon talk about it a little bit more. But we're really not seeing southern rust yet. I know for southeast Missouri, we're kind of ahead of like Arkansas and Mississippi guys in general. So that might have been some of the reason why we're not seeing it yet. It's just the crop's not far enough along south of us to bring it up. But I know I've talked about it in the past, but a lot of rain, a lot of south winds, a lot of warm weather. So we got the conditions. It's just a matter of when it shows up. So
yeah, I think that goes to almost all those diseases, Jesse. It seems like we were just talking about blowing up thunderstorms before we started here, and there's just so much localized humidity in the atmosphere at this point. We're socked in with fog this morning. So, I mean, it's just, all those fungal diseases, you've got pretty much ideal conditions out there.
Yeah. So, and really, I mean, I just don't have a whole lot to talk about this week. I mean, as long as we keep raining, we're not too worried about irrigation. Normally I'd be preaching, get down on a schedule every 3 or 4 days, whatever it takes, because we're normally for 100 and no rain for 3 weeks. But so this has been a good deal. I've got some sand corn behind the house, and this is the first year in like 5 that I hadn't seen the sand ridges burn up. So I'll take that. Granted, the wet spots, there ain't nothing there, but it's just part of it. But no, it's just we're just getting by here and see what the weather brings. We're supposed to be cooler this week, so that'll be a nice change. Just upper 80s, low 90s. So this is just the grinding time for the year. Get done what you can and move on.
Yep. We're definitely getting into that stage for sure. So,
and Shannon, just real quick on the southern rust. We've been talking about it, and I don't know if you thought this earlier, but we also kind of talked about, we're so used to southern rust now. I just wonder if some of it's just not getting reported, because like it's central Arkansas is the closest thing that I've found when you look stuff up. So we've just had it for so long. Part of me wonders that, and we know CropReport works for a long, that if it's just really not getting talked about like it used to.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility for sure. All right, Shannon. Well, he kind of teed you up, so I'll go ahead and kick it over to you. I know you've got varying crop conditions too, because I remember some Snapchats of you in a planter tractor pretty recently here. So anyway, what's going on in Southwest Missouri, Southeast Kansas?
Well, the tune of everyone else, we're still a little wet, which again, not going to complain after 4 years of drought and it being late July. It has made things difficult to get things done in a timely manner, and there's some frustrations out there because of that. But for the most part, guys are trucking along, and we're still getting stuff done. It's just at a slower pace than normal. I'll start with corn, since Jesse kind of led into there with southern rust. Cheston Stacy, our local agronomist for D8, did find southern rust last week, the very southern end of his territory in Berry County. I looked at the map this morning, and there hasn't been any update on our side of the state, but it does look like Jesse's song has moved up a little bit closer to you, just south on the Arkansas line. So, but to that point, though, our early planted corn, our corn that got in at a decent time, it's far enough along that I'm really not that concerned if the disease does, blow up. Really, I'm not even surprised that it's here. It's more of a confirmation of, yeah, we've got the environment for the disease. We know it blows in every year. It's just a matter of when and what the severity is. So since he found that one last Monday, we have not found any more. So the overall disease pressure is still very low. The one thing I am concerned about is any corn that was either replanted or planted late due to planting conditions. So that late April, early May, all the way through that's the corn I'm worried about, because a lot of that corn's still in the vegetative states. It won't be tasseling for another 7 to 10 days. So that's where my attention goes to, and keeping an eye on that, because that I almost guarantee that'll need a fungicide if southern rust does blow up. If the environment that we have now continues, we stay in the mid 80s. We have a lot of moisture. Southern rust thrives. So that's something we're keeping an eye on there. For soybeans, we range anywhere from planted from this weekend to R3, almost R4, our first crop beans. So quite a wide range. Those early beans are getting that fungicide insecticide application now, and then we're fighting weeds like every year. This is the time of year where we're fighting weeds. Getting pig weeds that grow faster than we can get across the field, especially when it's wet. Some of these fields were wheat that had finesse on them, but that broke long ago, and that wheat comes out. It sets for a week or 10 days before a sprayer comes across. Those are the things that we're fighting. So throwing the kitchen sink at it early is what we've been doing. Wheat harvest is still tracking along. Quite a bit was done before the rain this weekend, but there is still a fair amount of wheat out there that needs to get out in southeast Kansas. Hopefully bounce around this week. I mean, guys have already been running it out, so they're just pushing through when they can. It's just wind field conditions. I got some pictures of some combines getting buried over the weekend, and it's a pretty bad deal. So hopefully those guys can get that stuff out, and we can move on to the rest of the season.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Shannon, I know it's wet, and I'm sure that's slowing down wheat harvest. Is there a lot of wheat that's down as well as slowing down wheat harvest, or the continued rains had any impact on that?
Yeah, so there's been some. It's really not any rhyme or reason, because I've seen some fields that were treated the exact same, and some fields go down and some don't. But yeah, there's also down wheat, which is also slowing things down. Not every field and not the whole field, but there are spots that's definitely impacted. Grain quality has been going down. There's reports of more sprouts. There's mold showing up in the grain now. So it's just it's not a good deal. Test weights are low. So
yeah, I wouldn't expect to be banner grain quality from that wheat that's still hanging out there in the field mid-July. So,
yep,
for sure. All right, sounds good. Well, let's move slightly north to Scott, who's got kind of the center part of the state, and I know he's got lots of variable crop conditions, like everybody else has been talking about too. So, Scott, what's going on up there?
Yeah, well, like you said, we're pretty variable. Also, we've got corn that was just planted a couple of weeks ago, and all the way to R2. Same with beans. I guess the main thing that a lot of our corn, has hit tasseling. So we've had opportunity to go ahead and pull the trigger on quite a bit of fungicide. I guess the one thing we noticed this week, disease wise, we're still finding tar spot, but nothing real crazy yet. So So in some cases, we've got folks who are kind of following some of the university's guidelines and holding off on fungicides. My concern is we are seeing a ton of gray leaf spot. And so my folks, when I poll them kind of each week, what are you seeing? And then, my own observations. And then on this one in particular, I was at pest management field day at the university's Bradford farm last week. And I was just talking to other people in the industry just to make sure that, what I was seeing, they were seeing, and just a lot of gray leaf spot. In some cases, all the way up to the ear leaf on tassel corn, and guys are still holding off because the guidelines are to wait a little longer because of tar spot. And, I think if you're seeing gray leaf, I mean, that was our driver disease for years. And, it's, be careful about waiting on tar spot if that one's already working on you. It is one, and Cameron, you can probably speak to this better than I can. I'm sure you can, just kind of with your background. But it is one that historically we've been able to do a good job on getting ratings for. Some diseases, sudden death in soybeans, for example. And, sometimes it's hard to create the situations when they're rating and really get good numbers on it. But it seems like gray leaf is one that you can really kind of trust the ratings. And does that track with you, Cameron, what I'm saying? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the ratings, the seed guides or any of the kind of that information you're getting from seed book on those ratings are usually pretty spot on with gray leaf spot and northern corn leaf blight. Those have been diseases that have been around longer than most of the ones that we talk about. And so the ratings that come out of those, they're pretty spot on anymore.
Well, in gray leaf, we've seen it, but we haven't had a big year for several years. And I didn't know if some of that was variety. I don't look at all that probably as close as I should. Could be conditions also, but just make sure that you haven't had a variety that's otherwise a great variety. There's been awesome varieties in the past, but that had a hole in gray leaf spot that it was just assumed you were going to plug with fungicide. Make sure that you don't have one of those, that Shannon kind of mentioned the disease triangle in a way. Make sure you haven't plugged in one of those varieties into a situation that is very conducive for gray leaf this year. And then we're just letting it wait because of the tar spot situation. So that'd be my main watch out on corn. And the other one that we're watching, I mean, just like you said, Shannon, over on the eastern side of my region, for example, we've got a lot of corn that's way behind. When southern rust gets up here, we notice it, but it's usually late enough in the season we don't get too wound up about it. But that could be a different situation with a lot of the later crop that we have this year. So we'll be watching that. On beans, we've talked about it, or at least I've written about it for a few weeks. We've had a lot of beans that have been at R3 for a while, but now that we're, at the time on the calendar, we're going ahead and we're pulling the trigger on quite a few bean fields as well for fungicide. Started that really tail end of last week. So I see that now going forward. And then the rest of the beans that were planted at kind of a normal time that are just now hitting R3, from here on out, in most cases, we'll go ahead and pull the trigger on those like we always would, just right at the beginning, or even cheated a little bit to the front, tail end of R2. Weeds, just like everybody else says, there are a lot of clean fields. And I guess what I'm just really encouraging folks to do now is look at what you've done, talk to other people, trying to figure out, why. I mean, in some cases, I think it's because we have had the frequent rains that we've had that have caused us some issues. It's also allowed us to get residuals into the soil. So I think that's helped us at times. At other times, it's kept us from getting a good burn down. So, I mean, there's those problems, but just as you're seeing those fields that are cleaner, ask what was different. One big one, just seeing the second year of beans. I mean, we know that in Missouri, for the most part, we're a corn, bean state. That, those continuous beans, even the second year of beans, it doesn't have to be 7 years of beans. That second year, sometimes you can see, quite a bit of difference in weed control. Those kind of things. Look at your row spacing. This isn't everywhere, but I've been hearing some positives about, the drilled beans or air seeder, narrow row beans. Other guys will tell you it's not making any difference after they did that. So a lot of anecdotal stuff, but some of the cover crop things, different things we're seeing, different rates. course, there's baggage with that, but we do get some weed suppression, particularly on the higher rated or higher rates we run. So I guess I'm saying all that. I should have prefaced it. Pretty discouraged with sometimes our post applications. We only have so many products, obviously, and only so many different ways we can treat them, and adjuvants and everything. And sometimes it's just so hit and miss that if there's anything else that we can do that gives us some percentage of control, we just really need to be looking at those things. And it's kind of like I wrote in my article last week. We're gonna figure some of this out for ourselves because there's not a silver bullet, coming anytime soon. So that's all I got.
Nope, those are definitely good call outs, Scott, because you can see those differences going down the road, as far as good weed control versus not. And yeah, those are good call outs to dig into some of those scenarios and try to figure out what's working right super locally there for you. So good stuff. Appreciate it, Scott. Let's go a little bit further north and see what's going on up with Craig Russell.
Yeah, good morning. I don't necessarily have a whole lot to add to what these guys have said. Our corn is pretty well about the same stage as Scott's. I mean, we've got corn that's getting pretty close to R2 or is R2 blistered stage now. And then we've got corn that's kind of just starting to tassel. There's probably some corn over there a little further east where Adam's at that's a little bit further behind yet. But most of the corn in retail north is going to have a fungicide application applied here within the week if it's going to happen typically, or at least if it was planned. I guess one note I would have on that, because it kind of goes in hand with the southern rust, is and kind of what Jesse talked about down south. We're finding tar spot pretty regular in fields now. It's not blowing up necessarily yet, but if you're in a county where it's reported, then you can probably go out there, and if you're looking, you'll be able to find it. There's some counties on the map this year that aren't reported that I know it's been confirmed in. I'm going to kind of try and work to maybe get those reported, but it's a real thing. I mean, tar spot's been around for quite a few years now, and we know what products work on it. There's some ratings and stuff out there as far as fungicides concerned. We've identified a few really susceptible varieties, and I just don't think it's getting reported and talked about like it used to. Doesn't mean it's not a concern. So specifically on some of this later planted corn, though, kind of just like you would try and manage for southern rust. I mean, this later planted corn is going to be susceptible to a lot of disease. It's southern rust, tar spot, could be gray leaf spot, northern corn leaf blight. We keep getting these adequate rains, and conditions are really conducive. So, as you're kind of making those plans on what you're going to do with some of this later planted corn, just don't forget about it and just let the disease take it, I guess, is all I'm kind of saying on some of that. Soybeans, we are still doing some herbicide applications. A lot of these beans now are getting into the reproductive stages pretty good. So we're looking at R2, R3 soybeans, and kind of as Scott had mentioned, those fungicide applications are going out and getting applied. Not really seeing a whole lot of insect pressure necessarily at the moment, but I would just encourage folks, make sure you are still putting that insecticide with your fungicide, because that greening effect you're going to get of the fungicide, it's going to attract insects. There's some beneficial fungus out there that does help control some of our insects as well, that you're going to be controlling with that fungicide. So just make sure you are doing your due diligence there. We don't typically recommend blanket fungicides, but if you are making a fungicide application to soybeans, then you need that insecticide in there. So disease pressure in the soybeans really hasn't been anything too crazy yet. We're starting to see some downy mildews. There's some septoria, a little bit of frog eye out there, but it's not blowing up yet. Conditions this week are going to be cooler. The moisture's there, but it's just not the high humidity, warmer days that you typically think of when you see that disease kind of blow up. But there's still plenty of time for it to do that and impact yields. So preventative application might not be such a bad thing. Don't necessarily have a whole lot to add on top of that, but that's kind of what we've got going on up here. So
Yeah, no. Good stuff though, Craig. I appreciate your call out there on the insecticide on those soybean applications. I know we mentioned soybean fungicides a couple times, and yeah, it's a big one. Same here. I guess I haven't seen a lot of stink bugs and stuff yet, but those are, those can be some pretty big yield robbers a lot of times, just as much, if not more than some of those fungal diseases out there. So trying to put a product out there that's going to last as long as possible, catch some of those pod feeders is a big deal. So guys, anything else that we missed or nobody covered today that you feel like is kind of pertinent for what's going on right now? Not seeing anybody giving me anything. So, all right, fair enough. Well, we're going to call this one good and kind of short, sweet, and to the point this morning, which is great. So appreciate everybody's time this morning. Thanks for jumping on here. Thanks, Cameron, for heard you make some agronomic advice here this morning, and appreciate hearing that from you. That's good to have you back, buds. So anyway, appreciate everybody jumping on this morning. Appreciate everybody listening, and we'll talk to you next episode.
Thank you for listening to Made for Agriculture, brought to you by MFA, your whole farm solution.